Well, as you've heard, the breaking news of the night is that Maryland Senator Chris Van Hollen has managed to visit the Maryland resident Kilmar Abrego Garcia, being held in prison in El Salvador in what the Trump administration admits was a mistake. Senator Van Hollen broke the news on Blue Sky, posting, quote, "I said my main goal of this trip was to meet with Kilmar. Tonight, I had that chance. I have called his wife, Jennifer, to pass along his message of love. I look forward to providing a full update upon my return." And of course, the president of El Salvador, in his wise guy mode, mocked the meeting with this tweet saying, "Kilmar Abrego Garcia miraculously risen from the death camps and torture, now sipping margaritas with Senator Van Hollen in the tropical paradise of El Salvador." And then at 9:01 p.m. tonight, President Bukele of El Salvador added this to his tweet, saying, now that he's been confirmed healthy, he gets the honor of staying in El Salvador's custody. Well, we will see about that. And of course, the president of El Salvador thinks tonight is a time to be mocking this prisoner that he's holding there and mocking this process. But his words are going to be used in court now in this case, as are Donald Trump's, and they are going to be helpful to Mr. Abrego Garcia, because what the president of El Salvador has demonstrated today is just how easy it is to get this person out of El Salvador, just how easy it is to control his movements in El Salvador and out of El Salvador. This will all be part of the case. J. Harvey Wilkinson III has 41 years of experience as a federal judge. He was appointed by Republican President Ronald Reagan in 1984. And in his 41 years of service, Judge Wilkinson maybe had a right to think he had seen it all. It must be difficult to shock the legal sensibilities of Judge Wilkinson at this point in his career. But he used the word shocking today, a word judges rarely use, to describe what the Trump team has done to Kilmar Abrego Garcia after they snatched him out of his car with his autistic 5-year-old child watching from the back seat, and then sent him to a deliberately cruel and unusual prison in El Salvador, where he may remain tonight. A 3-judge federal appeals court panel unanimously ruled against the Trump administration in the case today. Judge Wilkinson, writing the opinion, said, "While we fully respect the executive's robust assertion of its Article 2 powers, we shall not micromanage the efforts of a fine district judge attempting to implement the Supreme Court's recent decision. It is difficult in some cases to get to the very heart of the matter, but in this case, it is not hard at all. The government is asserting a right to stash away residents of this country in foreign prisons without the semblance of due process that is the foundation of our constitutional order. Further, it claims in essence that because it has rid itself of custody, that there is nothing that can be done. This should be shocking, not only to judges, but to the intuitive sense of liberty that Americans far removed from courthouses still hold dear. The government asserts that Abrego Garcia is a terrorist and a member of MS-13. Perhaps, but perhaps not. Regardless, he is still entitled to due process. If the government is confident of its position, it should be assured that position will prevail in proceedings to terminate the withholding of removal order. Moreover, the government has conceded that Abrego Garcia was wrongly or mistakenly deported. Why then should it not make what was wrong right? Making what was wrong right was the very purpose in the founders' creation of the American judicial system, which must always include due process of law. In today's unanimous ruling by the appeals court, Judge Wilkinson wrote the executive possesses enormous powers to prosecute and to deport. But with powers come restraints. If today the executive claims the right to deport without due process and in disregard of court orders, what assurance will there be tomorrow that it will not deport American citizens and then disclaim responsibility to bring them home? Here's what Donald Trump said on Tuesday about sending American citizens to that very same deliberately and proudly cruel and unusual prison in El Salvador.
Could we use it for violent criminals, our own violent criminals?
I call them homegrown criminals.
Yes.
I mean, the
homegrowns.
The ones that grew up and something went wrong and they hit people over the head with a baseball bat. We have, and push people into subways just before the train gets there, like you see happening sometimes. We are looking into it and we want to do it. I would love to do that.
Would love to do it. Here's what Donald Trump said today.
We have a great relationship with the president of El Salvador. Will you ask him to release Abrego Garcia so that you can facilitate his return here to the United States? And do you believe he deserves due process here?
Well, I must tell you, I have to refer again to the lawyers. I'll have to do what they ask me to do. I had heard that there were a lot of things about a certain gentleman, perhaps it was that gentleman, that would make that case be a case that's easily winnable on appeal. So we'll just have to see. I'm going to have to respond to the lawyers.
Today, Donald Trump also said this about Mr. Abrego Garcia.
I've heard many things about him, and we'll have to find out what the truth is.
We'll have to find out what the truth is. That's the reason we have due process. That is exactly what the phrase due process means. We'll have to find out what the truth is. Leading off our discussion tonight is Andrew Weissmann, former FBI general counsel and former chief of the criminal division in the Eastern District of New York. He's also an MSNBC legal analyst. Andrew, I just want you to collect all of the breaking news developments along with the appeals court opinion today. Donald Trump just saying we'll have to find out what the truth is. We're going to hear that. I assume that line will be in legal filings made by Abrego Garcia's attorneys saying, look, even the president of the United States says we have to find out what the truth is.
So I've been on air. Rachel Maddow has been on air. Now you're on air, all talking about the Wilkinson decision because it's so remarkable. And I'm going to answer your question, but I just want to, for a moment, make sure that everyone understands where we are, because, you know, there's lots and lots of bad news that we cover all the time. But I want to make sure people understand we have talked about Judge Luttig speaking out, and he's done that for quite some time and in a heroic way. And then we've had the Wall Street Journal speak out about the Garcia case, the Abrego Garcia case. But now I want to make sure people understand Judge Wilkinson is a revered conservative Republican in a really conservative community. He is clearly, in a unanimous ruling, sending a clear clarion call about what is going on and the violation of law and the violation of this man's due process rights. It is matched by Jack Goldsmith at Harvard, John Yoo. I mean, there is a remarkable constellation. So it is not sort of what I'll call the MSNBC crowd. This is not people just saying the sky is falling. You're seeing this across the board here, with people really understanding that the fundamental principles of this country are being violated. And yes, to your point, we are going to have in court the president's own statements, which, by the way, are directly responded to in the part of the decision that you read, where it's like the government wants to go ahead and prove that somebody is part of a gang and should be deported, that's the point. That's what the court of law is for, and it will be the court that decides that, not the president of the United States. That will be in the court proceeding, and certainly the senator's trip will be in the court proceeding, precisely for the reasons you note, that the only reason that Mr. Abrego Garcia is there is because of Donald Trump, not because of the unilateral decision of El Salvador.
Yeah, and so we don't know exactly where the meeting took place. Apparently, it took place at a hotel in El Salvador, which means he was removed from the prison today to go to a hotel. They apparently gave him back the clothes that he arrived in and didn't have to, got him out of whatever the prison uniform is. There's a government official there apparently standing, facilitating this, that important word, Supreme Court word, facilitating. And in what we're seeing there, Andrew, this seems to be the pictures we're looking at now. These pictures seem to be extremely relevant to the Supreme Court's assessment of what is possible here. This is, a senator gets this kind of treatment in any country they go to anywhere in the world. They get maximum cooperation from any government wherever a senator goes. A president of the United States has even more power than what you're seeing Senator Van Hollen manage to exercise today in getting to meet and speak with this resident of Maryland who is now imprisoned in El Salvador. It seems to me the courts are going to be very, very interested in what the senator was able to accomplish versus what they would expect the president to be able to accomplish here.
Of course. I mean, this is one where, there's a reason that Judge Wilkinson described this as that not subtly veiled thumbing of the executive branch's noses at the court order. He knows exactly what's going on, and this really goes a long way to prove it. If you needed any more proof, for God's sake, we're paying to have that man kept in prison without any due process. But it's the fact that we're paying that is the reason he's there. If this was some unilateral action on the part of El Salvador, which there's zero evidence of that, in fact, all evidence is to the contrary, there's no reason that they would be arranging a hotel meeting outside of the prison for anyone. They would be saying, the United States has nothing to do with our sovereign nation. Instead, he's there only because Donald Trump wants him there and is paying for him to be there. That is the key point, and that is why the administration is not even answering the question, have you asked for him to be returned? They have still not answered that question, and this man is in jail where the Supreme Court has said his rights have been violated by the Trump administration. As Judge Wilkinson said, if you've done something wrong, it is time to make it right.
Yeah, and as we speak, I just want to do one more question, but I want to keep those pictures of Senator Van Hollen on the screen because it is so inspiring to see what he achieved and seeing what his intervention means here. Andrew, the president of El Salvador has now done this typically for him, wise guy tweet tonight. He's very Trumpian in his wise guy tweeting, thinking he's outsmarting everyone. And his latest tweet tonight says, now that you've seen that he's healthy, we're going to keep him here. And this is a specific, what this president of El Salvador is doing, I don't think he's aware of it, is he is specifically taunting the Chief Justice of the United States, John Roberts. You can do nothing. You can do nothing here. You don't even have the power that Chris Van Hollen has.
So, I totally agree with you that this is somebody who may think he's being cute, but, his tweets have already been used in a court of law. Judge Boasberg, in finding probable cause that the Department of Justice and this administration has committed contempt. Just for a moment, let's just remember what I just said. A federal judge has found that this administration has committed contempt of his order. And one of the things he cites is the taunting tweet from the president of El Salvador, where the planes that were supposed to have been turned around land, and the president of El Salvador says, "Oops, too late." Well, it wasn't too late, and that was used. And, that is the kind of thing, that's the reason you see Judge Boasberg, the appellate courts, the Supreme Court, in not one but two decisions, a district court in Maryland, and now a conservative panel in the Fourth Circuit with Judge Wilkinson writing a truly scathing opinion. I highly, highly recommend people read it. It's 7 pages. It's written for the public to understand what's going on here, and it's apolitical. I mean, there's no way to trash this as some deep state judge who should be impeached. It's so important for people to understand how bipartisan the uproar is here about the sort of lawlessness and callousness of what is going on.